Hi, in this PHP tutorial we will introduce PHP web development language. We will introduce some of the main features within PHP by some practical examples. So here is the contents of this tutorial. First, an introduction to web development in general, then introduction to the PHP web development programming language. Then we will get started with some basic PHP programming. Then we will go more in depth regarding PHP programming. Then we will introduce different features within web programming and PHP, like how to use HTML forms in PHP, how to use session variables, and how to use PHP in combination with a MySQL database. So we start with a short introduction to web development in general and some tools that we are going to use in this tutorial. So some of the most used server-side or back-end web development frameworks today is PHP, which is the focus in this tutorial. Other server-side or back-end web development frameworks are ASP.NET Core from Microsoft. Here we typically use Visual Studio and the C# programming language. Other frameworks are Ruby on Rails, where Ruby is the programming language. Another framework is Django, where Python is the programming language. But there are also many others, so-called server-side web development frameworks on the market today. Here are some tools that we are going to use in this tutorial. Of course, we need to use PHP, which is a service scripting language for making web pages or web applications, and typically we also use it in combination with a database like MySQL for communicating and retrieving or inserting data within an SQL Server database like MySQL. In this tutorial I will host the PHP file on an existing web server that supports both PHP and the MySQL Server database. But there exist many hosting services that you can use that support both PHP and MySQL Server. I will use the Visual Studio Code in order to create the PHP code. It's a simple code editor from Microsoft. Typically we need to transfer files that are created on our computer to the web server. For that, we typically use a protocol called FTP for File Transfer Protocol. We will use a software called WinSCP in this tutorial, but there exist many other FTP tools of software if you prefer. I will use this MySQL database, which is a popular database system and is especially popular in combination with PHP. But other types of databases is also possible. I also will use this PHP MyAdmin, which is a free and open source administration tool for the MySQL database. Then let's start with a short introduction to PHP. So basically PHP is a server scripting language for making interactive web pages or web applications. The PHP scripts are executed on the server or on the web server. So it's a so-called server-side scripting language for creating dynamic web pages. PHP files has the extension .php. Typically these PHP files are a mix of PHP language, HTML code, CSS, and JavaScript. PHP is free and open source, and PHP is very popular in combination with database communication and especially this MySQL Server database. A known term is called LAMP. This is short for Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. So this combination with these tools are very popular. Where we use the Linux operating system on the server, we use an Apache web server on the server, We use the MySQL server database also on the server, and then we have this PHP programming language. PHP is still widely used and probably still one of the most used and most popular language for web development today. The main good thing about PHP, it's easy to use and easy to learn, but still very powerful. You can within few hours create quite advanced web applications using PHP, and especially in combination with a database system like MySQL server. So in order to start using PHP, you need to have a PHP and a MySQL environment either locally on your computer or on a server that you have access to through internet. For a local installation, you typically need to download and install this Apache, which is a web server that are hosting PHP. There also exist other types of web servers that you can use, but the Apache web server is the most common web server to use in combination with PHP. And then in addition, you need to install the PHP programming language and the MySQL database. I guess you can get server access to many providers. Some of them are free to use, but most of them you need to pay some monthly amount. Typically you just search for PHP web hosting, etc., and then you'll find lots of options. In this tutorial I will just use an internal LAMP server that are available for employees and students at my university. But if you're going to follow this tutorial, you either need to have access in some way to a server that has these tools installed already, or you need to also, an option is to install these tools locally on your computer. So as I mentioned, this LAMP alternative is popular, where you have a Linux server, you have the Apache web server, you have the MySQL database, and the PHP programming language. Since this combination is very popular because each of these 4 different parts are free and open source, so you can easily set up your own web hosting environment for free, but you also find lots of providers where they already have this set up, and you can either use it for free or they have some paid options that doesn't cost too much money. And also for this combination you will also find lots of online documentation and a large community. So if you need help, it's always easy to find help on internet regarding these technologies: PHP, MySQL, Apache, and Linux. I guess there exist hundreds of or even thousands different LAMP with PHP and MySQL hosting providers. As mentioned, some are free, but mostly you need to pay a monthly fee. Here are some examples: Hostinger, Infinity Free, Pro, ISP, etc. I guess there are lots or many others. Just use Google and then you will find an option that may suit your needs. An alternative to this LAMP is something called SAMP. This is an alternative popular PHP development environment. While SAMP in this case stands for cross-platform: Apache, MySQL, PHP, and Perl. And this alternative works on Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. And it's quite easy to install this package. Just go to their homepage, which you find here. Then you have either set up this environment for PHP development, either locally or using a provider where you have access to this environment through internet. typically you also need to use this PHP MyAdmin tool. This is a tool that is typically installed as part of this environment, where you can administrate your MySQL database. Here you can run queries, you can create tables, etc. In order to start your PHP programming, you also need some kind of a code editor. I guess you can, in the simplest case, you can just use Notepad on Windows, but typically you want to use an editor like Visual Studio Code, because here you have IntelliSense, etc. And also this Visual Studio Code is multi-platform. It works on Windows, Linux, macOS, etc. and also free to install and use. You can just download it from this web page. And also Visual Studio has an add-in package for PHP, and then you will get IntelliSense, etc. when creating your PHP applications. Another code editor is called PHP Storm. This one is developed by JetBrains company. You can use it for free for 30 days, but if you are a student or an educator, you can also get full free access to this PHP Storm. So basically, Visual Studio Code, I recommend this one. It's a free and open source code editor developed by Microsoft. It supports many programming languages like PHP. In order to use PHP, typically you want to install this extension, because then you get IntelliSense, etc. for PHP code, etc. So Visual Studio Code is a general purpose code editor for almost any kind of programming language or framework through so-called extension. So basically you can use Visual Studio Code for almost all kind of programming by installing different extensions for the different programming languages. As mentioned, this PHP Storm is developed by JetBrains. If you are a student or work at a university, you can also get free access to this tool. Compared to Visual Studio Code, this has more functionality and features regarding PHP development. For more advanced use of PHP, typically this is a good option. But for more basic use, Visual Studio Code probably is the best alternative.